This is Dr. Mike with a bit of Linux for you. This topic we're going to talk about shared libraries. So first off, what is a shared library? It is a chunk of shared code that's usually shared between programs. So Windows, I think, would be synonymous to a DLL file. The idea being, I don't want to rewrite how to print to the default printer. I call the print shared library for that. So it's supposed to help with shared code. Now, the chapter itself this topic talks about how to configure this. Honestly, it's very, very uncommon to actually reconfigure your library files. They're pretty much handled through previous topics we talked about, which was our yum and apt-get. So if I try to install something that needs a library file, it will go out and it will install that for me. However, there's some stuff you might need to figure out when dealing with specific topics in Linux. So first off, let's look at where they're at. So system library files under /lib, and then we have user library files, user lib. To the common places we'll see these files. Now, let's do this here. You can see these files with .so. So that is a shared object there. So .so is your library file type. Again, you can see here there's 3 advantages. So there is library linker programs and an actual LD library path that's usually listed in your environment variables. And you can use ld-config to configure these. But again, I'm going to skip over these and keep this really short and show you really the use for library files, and it is to look for specific library entries. And that's with the LDD command. So what would you want to see if you have a certain library installed? Or even more important, does a specific service or application use a library file? So let's take an example here. So there's a security aspect called TCP wrappers. That's in basically all Linux distributions I know of, but here we see the Red Hat documentation for it. So TCP wrappers, a very powerful way to add in control for a service. For example, let's say I have FTP running, and if I wrap FTP, I can configure it where FTP port is open on my firewall. I can't, and you can do some firewall work here, but I can also further constrict who can access FTP through my firewall. But let's say I need to be open here. This is like an enterprise-wide firewall. It's going to be too much to control it here. So what I can do is I can add in TCP wrappers here, and I can wrap a service. And that does is a firewall allows in, let's say, all firewall ports 2021 come in fine, but when it goes to my server here, that's my server, I only allow in specific IP address ranges or specific IP address, and that's where TCP wrapper comes in. I can say I only allow in IP address .245, whatever, maybe from a local within my network. So that way, if someone doesn't get through the firewall through the open port 2021, they were restricted from TCP wrappers. So it really is a way to really confine services. So a very handy way to do that. Now, of course, you'll see here, you just can't install it and use it. You just can't jump in and start configuring it. You got to make sure the service is wrapped and uses lib-wrap-so or lib64, 64-bit SO. So very important that we check for this. And how do we check for that? So LDD command. LDD is going to help us see what services use what. So in this case, let's take a look at our SSH program. So SSH server actually. So first off, SSHD is our daemon. That's our secure shell. So I want to actually libwrap or a TCP wrap SSHD. So I got to check if it is using librap.so. If it's not, I can configure these all I want. By the way, these files to do this are these two files here, etchost.allow.host.deny. I can configure these all day, and if it's not using that library file, it won't be used. So you can have a misconfigured system. So important thing is to find the path, which SSHD. And you see it says user sbin SSHD. So if I do LDD command, and I do that on the path, user sbin SSHD, it shows me these are the libraries that are used by this executable. And we can see librap.so is one of them. So I could use that with my librap configuration. So I verified that step, and now I can configure these files to use that. So I don't want to get into librap as this lesson, but I want to show you how you really would use it, how I've used it in the past. It's just to verify the usage. So the other option is any library too. So example, let's talk about the ls command. We know ls. We do it, it runs, it gives us ls. Well, which ls do we use? Bin ls. So LDD on bin ls. And you can see these are the libraries it's using. There's another security SELinux for you, security installation, security aspect of Linux. So again, but I think you verify what it's using. So LDD command. And really, again, when it comes to managing libraries, you rely upon your apt-get or yum infrastructure to install or remove them. And you can actually use those to go out and search for and install library files specifically if they're hosted in the repositories. And again, if you need to be, if it's a third-party custom thing you created or maybe a self-created library, you can install those with the same commands, the dpkg or rpm, and you can create your own library file and install those. Most of the configuration that's reviewed here, again, is really customizing the path for libraries. Again, it's a really specific thing, and that could be system-wide. But understanding where the path is at is probably useful too. So the LD library path can be handy to see the path for that user's environment. So if a user can't run an app, verify that their LD library path, the library they need, is in their app libraries. So anyway, that's really the only uses for libraries you will find. Otherwise, just verifying them, LDD command, and our LD library path variables are going to be the ways to ensure the configurations are correct. And that covers shared libraries. Thank you.